Welcome to the Global Republic, a podcast exploring the forgotten channels through which modernity was born. Not through revolutions alone, but through books, language, and improbable friendships. I'm Leland Masters, and today we're talking about a republic without borders, a republic of Arabic letters. Most of us are taught to think of the Enlightenment as something very European, French salons, English empiricism, American constitutions. And yes, Voltaire, Rousseau, Jefferson, Kant, they're all here. But what if I told you that some of the Enlightenment's most essential ideas were born through reading Arabic? This episode is based on Alexander Bevilacqua's The Republic of Arabic Letters, a remarkable history of how 17th and 18th century European scholars engaged seriously with Islamic thought, not to condemn, but to understand. Before the Enlightenment became a political project, it was a reading project. It began not in Paris, but in Padua and Leiden, in the libraries of Oxford, in the presses of Venice. It was shaped by men like Maracci, Galland, Ockley, and Risca. You may not have ever heard of these people. But what united them was a shared belief that Arabic and the Islamic tradition it carried deserved intellectual charity and attention. Bevilacqua's story begins in a moment of profound curiosity. European scholars weren't just reading Islamic texts to polemicize. They were mining them for lost Greek knowledge, for insights into history, for answers to the big philosophical questions. And the texts they found, Quranic commentaries, legal treatises, astronomical works, histories, revealed not a static faith, but a dynamic civilization. Take Ludovico Maracci, for example. A priest, yes. A polemicist, yes. But also a man who read 5 different Quranic commentaries just to make sure he understood what the Quran actually meant before translating it into Latin. He produced a critical edition of the Quran that, while apologetic in tone, was deeply respectful in method. He believed in attacking, quote, the enemies with the enemy's own weapons. But to do so, he had to first understand those weapons, and that required philology, precision, and patience. Then there's Simon Ockley, a Cambridge Arabist who went so far as to say the Arab conquests rivaled the greatness of Rome. Or Johann Jakob Risca, who compared Ali ibn Abi Talib to Demosthenes and Pompey, calling him a hero of tragic eloquence. These scholars didn't just extract data, they fell in love with the beauty, the complexity, the rationality of Islamic civilization. They saw in Islam not a heresy, but a mirror, one that forced them to see Christianity differently, to revisit their assumptions about politics, revelation, reason. This wasn't just a one-way romance. The very infrastructure of this scholarship, the manuscripts, the grammars, the commentaries, came to Europe via dragomans. It's from the Arabic word tarjama, to translate. Yeah, it's the same thing. These diplomatic translators, called dragomans, and other intermediaries, moved between Ottoman and European worlds. As E. Natalie Rothman shows in The Dragoman Renaissance, these multilingual go-betweens shaped how Europeans saw the East. They didn't just translate, they curated, interpreted, mediated. Bevilacqua calls this moment a republic of letters, but we might also call it a republic of humility, because what these scholars practiced was the radical art of listening to another civilization, of saying, even if I disagree with your theology, your ideas matter. Even if I believe your book is false, I still want to read it, slowly, respectfully, and in your words. And this, I think, is the beginning of the Enlightenment. Not skepticism alone, but the courage to be intellectually charitable, to treat the unfamiliar as worthy, to allow another tradition to speak in its own voice. Now, this spirit didn't last. By the 19th century, Orientalism had become less about shared inquiry and more about imperial distance. Islam became exoticized, reduced, framed through power rather than curiosity. But the 17th and early 18th century moment Bevilacqua recovers is real. In between the Crusades and colonialism was this moment of charity. It happened, it mattered, it shaped Voltaire, Gibbon, and Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson owned a Quran. He didn't just collect it, he read it. And in that reading, he found a version of religion grounded in law, in rational monotheism, and in moral clarity. He saw Islam as a potential ally in the project of religious liberty, not because he agreed with it, but because he respected its coherence. Bevilacqua shows us that the Enlightenment had many parents, and some of them spoke Arabic. So what do we do with this knowledge? We remember that tolerance isn't a byproduct of progress, it's a precondition for it. That empathy and precision are not opposites, but partners. And that the most enduring revolutions often begin not with slogans, but with translation. Thanks for listening. You can read my full review of Bevilacqua's The Republic of Arabic Letters at leland.substack.com, where I'll also, in an upcoming article, be exploring S. Frederick Starr's Lost Enlightenment. Until next time, I'm Leland Masters, and this has been The Global Republic.